We've come to the end of the MOOC on responsible innovation. We hope that you've enjoyed the course and have gained some insight into the ethical considerations relevant to new technologies and innovations. We have chosen to address many of the questions head-on with many examples and from different perspectives. We have stayed away from the industry that has recently developed of providing definitions and grand schemes. We have focused instead on what we take to be the deeper underlying issues and drivers on the one hand, and the practical tools and pragmatic ramifications on the other. For your benefit, a brief summary of the course. In week 1, we introduced the notion of responsible innovation and saw how technology and innovations may frame us and shape the context in which we act, choose and decide. It became clear that ethical thinking needs to accompany innovation and that it needs to start very early on in the process. In week 2, we discussed values in institutions. When there are multiple values at play, there can be a sense of moral overload. We cannot satisfy all of them. However, we saw in those situations, innovations may be triggered by moral overload instead of being stifled by it. We also saw how innovation may exemplify moral progress by offering solutions to conflicting moral values. We also saw that emotions may run high due to the potential conflict of values and the risks they are associated with. In these cases, emotional responses could be seen as an opportunity to explore those values rather than as an impediment. So there are some reasons to be optimistic about the potential of innovation to accommodate multiple conflicting values and the tensions to which they give rise. We also discussed how institutions, defined as embedded social conventions and rules that structure social interactions between individuals and groups, can profoundly preserve and influence values, and it also became clear how technological design and institutional design needs to be aligned. In week 3, we focused on how incremental and radical innovations may come about, the factors that influence them, and how we can manage these innovations. We also saw that innovation takes place more and more in networks, resulting in more complexity and uncertainties. In week 4, we highlighted frugal innovations, a type of innovation that is specifically focused on bottom-of-the-pyramid consumers. Frugal doesn't just mean cheaper technology, but rather refers to the fact that these innovations are tailored to the lifestyle and living conditions of the communities in which they will be deployed. That said, frugal innovations are not ipso facto responsible, and the issue of social and moral standards must be addressed before we can say that they are. Also, the way frugal innovations are being designed needs a special approach. It has to be actor-centered. In weeks 5 and 6, we looked at one of the most important values for any technology, namely safety and security. To ensure that a given technology is safe, we need to conduct certain types of analysis and gauge the risks. And here we run also into the Collingridge dilemma. When a technology is new, it would be easier to change it and make it safer, but we may not always have the information to identify all the risks at an early stage. On the other hand, once the technology becomes embedded in society and the dangers are becoming apparent, it becomes very hard and expensive to change the technology. Furthermore, not all risks can be foreseen, and there will always be the possibility of unknown unknowns. In this case, we propose the precautionary principle as a maxim that can support our moral reflection about new technologies that develop at breakneck speed. In addition to understanding and identifying risks qualitatively, it's also possible to model and quantify them and engineer for safety. And to this purpose, risk analysis and safety engineering were introduced. First, we looked at one of the most commonly deployed methods for risk analysis, cost-benefit analysis. We discussed some ethical concerns with this method, namely, how can we price the priceless? We also introduced comprehensive risk analysis frameworks like fault tree analysis and bow tie models that allow both a quantitative and a logical understanding of risk. And finally, in week 7, we introduced value-sensitive design as a framework and approach for operationalizing the values we want our innovations to inherit. Value-sensitive design analysis can be represented in a value hierarchy matrix and can be approached from the bottom up or the top down, bridging down or ratcheting up the ladder of value hierarchy by specifying value considerations at different levels of abstraction. At the lowest level of abstraction, we can see how moral value considerations turn into constraints and requirements that merge with a list of technical requirements. The diagrammatic and explicit representation allows stakeholders to debate and negotiate these values in a constructive manner. Moreover, one can critically deconstruct and question the operational criteria. Are the central moral values effectively incorporated in the design? Or conversely, do the requirements achieve the desired moral values? On behalf of our Delft team, we thank you for joining us and for contributing to each other's learning experience in responsible innovation. We hope you've enjoyed the course and the discussions, and we do hope that it has encouraged you to look at innovation from a different perspective. We hope to see you again in the future in our MOOCs.